You paid $300 last spring, maybe $450. You watched the van park in your driveway, watched the technician drag a hose through your front door, and you felt responsible. You felt like a good parent, a clean homeowner, someone who takes care of things. And 48 hours later, your carpet was still damp, your kids were crawling on it anyway. And the bacteria count inside those fibers was measurably higher than before that technician ever set foot in your house. That is not an opinion. That is what happens when steam cleaning floods your carpet with moisture and leaves it soaking for up to 24 hours in a warm, enclosed room. You just built a petri dish across your entire living room floor and paid someone handsomely to do it. Here's the part that should make your stomach turn. The carpet underneath you right now is holding roughly 4,000 bacteria per square inch. E. coli, Salmonella, Staphylococcus, organisms that put adults in urgent care and send toddlers to the emergency room. You know what lives on your toilet seat? Fewer, significantly fewer. Your bathroom is cleaner than the surface your family sits on every single evening, and the industry that is supposed to fix that problem has a $5 billion reason to make sure you never figure out how simple the fix actually is. Think about the math for a second. $150 to $600 per visit, twice a year, every year you own that home. Over a decade, you are handing over thousands of dollars to a business model that depends entirely on one lie, that what is living in your carpet is too embedded, too dangerous, too technically complex for you to deal with on your own. That is the pitch. That is the entire foundation. And it is false. A dry powder method, using ingredients that cost less than $12 at any grocery store, eliminates the same bacteria, the same allergens, the same deep contamination in under 40 minutes. No machine, no technician, no 6-month contract with a company that needs you to stay ignorant. The cleaning industry has known about this for decades. They buried it because a customer who spends $12 once is a customer they lose forever. You were never paying for clean carpets. You were paying for the privilege of not knowing any better. And that ignorance is about to cost you far more than a cleaning bill, because there is a direct connection between carpet bacteria and a much larger, much more expensive problem quietly forming inside the structure of your home. Now hold that figure in your mind and compare it to what actually works. A dry powder absorption method developed in the late 1950s inside industrial textile laboratories in the American Midwest, engineered specifically for hospitals, airports, military bases, places where shutting down operations for a wet floor to dry was never an option. These labs created a fine-grained carrier powder that bonds with organic matter at a molecular level, pulls bacteria, oils, and allergens straight out of carpet fiber through a process called adsorption, and gets vacuumed away clean. Independent textile studies confirmed it outperformed wet extraction. The exposed cost of that method, applied in your own living room with ingredients already sitting in most kitchen cabinets, is under $12. $12 4 times a year. That's $48 annually to achieve what a $5 billion industry charges you $600 or more to do worse. So where did this method go? It didn't fail. It didn't fade. It was pushed out of the conversation deliberately. In the early 1970s, as commercial carpet cleaning expanded aggressively into residential homes, the companies manufacturing steam machines and selling the chemical solutions that fed those machines began pressuring trade associations. They funded industry guidance documents that reclassified dry powder treatment as a surface-level amateur technique. The institutional research proving otherwise was never republished for consumers. The science didn't change. The profit motive did. A $12 solution requiring zero professional equipment threatened the entire recurring revenue model that now extracts over $5 billion a year from American households alone, with hundreds of millions more across the UK. You're not paying for superior cleaning. You're financing the suppression of a method that was buried precisely because it eliminated the need for everything they sell. Every invoice you've signed was a small cut from a system designed to ensure you never did the math yourself. But the math is done now, and it doesn't lie. What matters next is understanding exactly what this method is made of, how it works at a chemical level, and why the compound at its core is something most of you already have within arm's reach right now. So now you know what the powder is. But knowing the ingredients changes nothing about your bank account. What changes your bank account is understanding who profits when you don't know, and how that profit is engineered to repeat forever. That is the real separation, not between people who clean and people who don't, but between people who own the solution and people who rent it from someone else every 6 months. Think about what just happened in your mind. You heard 3 ingredients: bicarbonate of soda at a pH of 8.3, food-grade diatomaceous earth, and tea tree oil. You probably thought, okay, that sounds reasonable. But the carpet cleaning industry, a $5 billion a year machine in the United States alone, hundreds of millions more in the UK, has bet its entire revenue model on the assumption that you will never act on that thought. They are not selling you clean carpet. They are selling you the belief that clean carpet requires their van in your driveway, their technician on your floor, Their invoice on your counter, $150 to $600 twice a year, year after year. That is not a service. That is a subscription to your own ignorance. And here's where the value really splits. The alkaline disruption that breaks bacterial cell membranes, the mechanical shredding from fossilized diatoms, the antimicrobial penetration from tea tree oil. None of that belongs to a company. None of it requires a license. The chemistry does not care who applies it. E. coli and Staphylococcus colonies thriving in your carpet pile do not check credentials before they die. The mechanism is public. The science is peer-reviewed. The cost is $8 to $14 for a bag of diatomaceous earth that lasts months, a cup of baking soda, 10 drops of essential oil, under $12 total. Yet someone is collecting $600 from you, and the only asset they hold that you don't is the confidence that you cannot do this yourself. That confidence gap is the real product being sold. Not to you, off you. You're not the customer in this equation. You are the margin. Every time you hand over that payment, you're confirming a hierarchy, where knowledge sits on one side of the invoice and obedience sits on the other. The person who vacuums slowly, twice in opposite directions, with a HEPA filter, who then works a measured powder into 200 square feet of living room carpet, that person has crossed a line the industry cannot tolerate. They have stopped renting the answer. They own it. And ownership, quiet, unglamorous ownership of a $12 process that replaces a $600 appointment, is exactly the kind of micro-asset that the entire extraction economy is designed to keep invisible. Because once you see it here, in your carpet, you start seeing it everywhere. In every recurring bill, in every service contract, in every expert who shows up to perform a procedure you were never taught to question. The pattern is always the same. Complexity is manufactured, so the solution can be sold back to you at markup. Now, before you do anything else, there's a specific way to combine these three ingredients that determines whether this actually works, or whether you just waste an afternoon and prove the industry right. The ratio matters, the sequence matters, and most people get it wrong on the first try because nobody walks them through it slowly enough. So here's where most people check out. They hear the truth, they nod, they feel that little spark of anger at how long they have been overpaying, and then they do absolutely nothing. Not because they are lazy, because nobody ever hands them a move small enough to actually make tonight, sitting at their kitchen table, before the motivation fades and the old routine swallows them whole again. Forget the big strategy. Forget the 5-year plan. Forget portfolio rebalancing and asset allocation and every other phrase designed to make you feel like you need a professional standing over your shoulder. What you need is one action so boring, so mechanical, so painfully simple that your brain cannot talk you out of it. Open your bank statement, not the app summary, the actual statement, every line, for the last 30 days. Sit down with a pen and a blank piece of paper. Write down every recurring charge, every subscription, every automatic payment that leaves your account without you physically approving it that month. Do not judge them yet. Do not cancel anything yet. Just write them down. The streaming service you forgot you had, the insurance add-on that renewed silently, the carpet cleaning contract that bills quarterly whether you called them or not, that gym membership still pulling $49 a month, even though you have not swiped in since March. This is not budgeting. Budgeting is what people tell you to do so you feel productive while changing nothing. This is a contamination audit. You're not looking at what you spend. You're looking at what leaves without your permission, the financial equivalent of bacteria colonizing the base of the fiber where you never think to look. Surface level awareness, checking your balance, glancing at the app that produces a fraction of the result. You have to reach the base. Set a timer for 30 minutes. That is all this takes. Not 2 hours of spreadsheet formatting, not a weekend seminar, 30 minutes and a pen. Most people who try to fix their finances and quit did not fail because the strategy was wrong. They failed because they skipped this step entirely. They vacuumed the surface and wondered why nothing changed underneath. When you finish that list, circle the 3 charges that surprise you most. Not the biggest ones, the ones you genuinely did not remember authorizing. Those 3 charges, on average, account for somewhere between $40 and $120 a month that is leaving your household with 0 return. Exposed to daylight for the first time, sitting there in your own handwriting, they suddenly look exactly like what they are. Quiet extraction. Repeat that audit once a month, same pen, same paper, same 30 minutes, and within 90 days you will have cut more waste than most people eliminate in a year of agonizing over budgets they never follow. That is the method. It is not exciting. It does not feel like a breakthrough. It feels like homework. And that is precisely why it works, because the financial industry has spent decades training you to believe that anything worth doing with your money requires their tools, their expertise, their recurring fee. The moment you sit down with a pen and prove that wrong, something shifts that no amount of advice ever triggers on its own. But cutting the bleed is only half of what is happening here. because where that money has been going and what it funds on the other side of the transaction connects to a structure most people never examine until the damage is already compounding against them. And this is the part where I owe you something most channels in this space will never give you: the right to walk away. You can close this video right now, do absolutely nothing, and your life will not collapse by Friday. Nobody is going to repossess your couch. No algorithm is going to punish you for hesitating.